Welcome to the Queen Divas, Queens of Fitness podcast. Join your hosts, three-time WBFF world champions and WBFF royalty, Alicia Gowans and Stephanie Ayala McHugh, as we explore all things female health, training, competing, mindset, and living the fitness life every day.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 3 of the Queen Divas podcast with my beautiful co-host, Stephanie Ayala McHugh.
Hello, guys.
And we are so pumped. We brought on we didn't just go little. We went real big with our first guest. Like, I'm talking like lifting big, heavy, big shit, big. And this awesome lady, I absolutely love her, actually. I've spent some time with her overseas, and she's a good friend of Stephanie Carey's, but she's legit like world's strongest woman. So like, I won't be like,
can I correct you real quick?
I might upset this chick. She might like punch me through the screen and shit. No, but I love everything about Stacy, and I'm sure all of you are gonna love her too. So Stacy Burr, head coach of Team BBS Training. She is a 4-time all-time world record holder. In 2019, my God, let me give you some context for why I say she's big. She hit a 1,435 pound total. Are you getting that? That's almost 1,500 pounds of pure.
You guys meet this woman.
And weight. Like, what the fuck?
Hey.
That happened like this.
Hey, you are though. You are, but you're not. It's weird.
This is intense, right? Okay, so 565 pound squat, a 320 pound bench. Here I am talking about trying to hit a 77 kilo bench press this year, Stace. Shit. And then a 550 pound deadlift to hit the highest wilks score of all time. Like, she literally
guys can't even do that.
My mind. Then on top of that, what I love about her, and the reason that I was like, yeah, epic, I want this chick to be our first guest, is because, as I said, I spent time with her, and she has got one of the best minds that I've come across inside of the pursuit of physical excellence. She is also, though, a really great, cool chick with a level of mental and emotional intelligence that is, just not something that you really see when you think mega strong power lifter. But this chick is really, quite honestly, she's the full package. So she's also a founder and, absolute champion on her own podcast called The Champion Mindset. She spends time traveling pretty much all over the globe, motivationally speaking about all things lifting, and then just literally kicking ass in seminars and workshops about how to be the best you can be. So welcome, Stace.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I feel like I'm gonna head out after that. You've already said what I need to say. So that's it.
She comes on, right, Steph, and I'm waiting for you to come into the waiting room. I'm like, Stace, haven't seen you forever. But then the first thing I do is I laugh because look in the background. Yeah. She's just got all these medals hanging everywhere. There's like, and that's like only a small percentage of what she's got in the house. So she's like,
it was making me nervous.
And it's just a casual flex, you know what I'm saying?
Just a little small one. And to add to that, you guys, I've actually met Stacy for the first time when I was with Mitch shooting. Mitch, for those of you guys who don't know who that is, it's a videographer under Gilco Productions. And he introduced me to Stacy, and I will say I've never had a hype person like Stace ever through a session like she put me through. She was the best, and I mean it, motivator, hype person. I mean, given she is the 4-time strongest woman in the world, so I can only imagine what she tells herself when she's lifting that weight. So just a little bit of that, like that hype and that energy that she was able to bring. I was lifting stuff that I honestly wasn't really sure I can keep going, but having her energy and her passion and just how humble she is, I mean, honestly drew me to her, made me fall in love. And that was actually about the time I believe she started the Champions Mindset. Fell in love with her podcast, referred all my clients to listen into, obviously all of her weekly episodes. And, here we are now starting our podcast. And what a better guest to start, obviously this appearance with. So thank you so much for coming on, Stace. Like, seriously.
No, thank you guys so much for having me. And I'm really excited for, your podcast and the growth of it, because you guys both are fantastic in your own accord as well. And Steph, like, I remember when I first met you, I was told all about you, you know, oh, wow, she's a WBFF pro. She's like absolutely untouchable, right? And so I was slightly intimidated when I first met you. I was like, okay. I was just there with Mitch, right? As, you know, support staff, right? Like you had no idea who I was or anything. But when we were training, one thing about training with Mitch and shooting videos with Mitch is he really wants you to work out. It's not just you know, okay, I'm going to bring a spray bottle. It's, you know, you're actually hard training. And you can tell when people actually have that passion and intensity. And I could tell by the way you were training, you were really enjoying it. And I was like, oh, we're going to get to this next level, right? And so once you responded to like me kind of yelling at you a little bit, that was it for me. I was like, this is about to be a fantastic workout video. And I remember that's probably one of the best videos that I've ever seen Mitch put together, just because it was so real and the intensity was so there. You blew my mind that day. So I was going home telling everybody about you. I was like, she was doing like split squats with 135 pounds. I was like, I can't even do that.
Hey, you know what though, when you get in that mindset, just like you said though, like you love the passion of training, and of course with your experience and your background, you've got to love the grind, you've got to love the pain. I mean, a lot of people think lifting weight, I mean, especially your kind of weight, is not painful, but I mean, God, it's pretty fucking painful, right? Like it really puts your body through a lot of taxing, you know, just a lot of effort, and all of the things that you have to put your body under stress for, you know, just to lift maybe a little extra pound or an extra kilo, you know, it's ridiculous. So tell us a little bit about how you started, you know, what got you into powerlifting? What was something that, you know, really initiated and put that fire underneath you to start?
Well, so I played college softball. So I was a college athlete and I was, you know, team leader, everything like that. And I really just loved the competition aspect, right? And so once I graduated from college, I was training, but I didn't really have a purpose that I was training for, right? I wasn't training for athletics anymore. I wasn't training to be explosive. And I just really just found myself in the gym and I found a home there. And so I do whatever I felt like was what was necessary for me. I was really interested in personal training and, you know, kinesiology and stuff. So I'd do what I thought was right. But I had some guys that approached me. I was bench pressing 185 pounds whenever I was just out of college and everything. And a couple of guys said, oh, well, you're pretty strong for a girl. Have you ever thought about powerlifting? And so all I heard was, oh, I'm strong for a girl. I was like, okay. I was like, you know, that stung a little bit. And I was like, well, let me go to this competition. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was like, I'm going to beat everyone there. All the guys, everything included. Yeah. I mean, close, no cigar, but like close. But once I did my first competition, I had no idea what I was doing. But that little, you know, chip on my shoulder that I was like, oh, well, watch this. I'm going to show you how strong I really am. And then once I got on the platform, and if you've never competed before, have you competed, Alicia?
Yeah, I had my very first powerlifting comp, which, you know, as you know, I broke my back. So that was a big deal for me. It was not so much about the numbers as it was just to accomplish it. But now I have the bug. Okay, funny story. I had no idea what I was doing, like you, but not as strong as you because of all of my crap. I literally came third place from first place because of one thing that I did where I missed the call on the bench. I just racked back before the call, far out. And that was my best lift, by the way. That was a 70 kilo and I just missed it, which for my very first time is pretty good. I'd never benched before. I had actually never benched before. Well, that's a competition bench. That's amazing. Yeah. So I felt pretty cool in my bench. And then I was this fucking far above my squat depth. So they didn't take my last squat, which, okay, to put this in context too, I broke my back under the squat bar. So it was a really big deal for me just to get there and do this. I didn't expect to, I just said to my coach, if I can hit 100 kilo squat, I'm happy, because I wasn't really sure about my structural capacity. And we did 117 and a half on comp day. So I blew my own mind on that day. And that was me not even to the point of rehab like I am now. So now I've got the bug and I know exactly what you're talking about. And I got knocked from first place to third and went, this is shit. I don't want to be third. I want to be first. So now I'm like back into it and trying to start grooming back up to, you know, hit some better, bigger numbers. But yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. That bug is like, so.
I mean, and I love it. And then like with my clients or anybody that I care about, it's like when you go on the platform and you compete, like my first time, you have people in there that are cheering for you, yelling your name, and they want you to complete this lift, you know? And in some worlds, like there's like definitely some pettiness or cattiness or whatever. People that you know, your friends, they might not even support you, but on the powerlifting platform for 9 attempts, you have everyone's attention and they want you to succeed, right? And there's just something really powerful about that. And so after my first meet, I was kind of like you. I missed a couple of commands and stuff because I had no idea what I was doing. But the good news is I bet you won't miss it again.
No,
right?
you know what? That's exactly right. And that's the first thing
Yeah.
I said was, I can't believe I did that, because I just totally, like, I literally just lost numbers. And then I was like, you know what? No, that's a good lesson. And what I loved was being an amateur at something again and being like, there is so much to learn. And I literally have, you know, like, I felt like a kindergartner. Like, I really did. I felt like I was back in training wheels and dinking around with all of my crash pads shit on. Like, that's how I felt. And it's awesome. Like, I have loved it. And I'm not going to be able to master this for some time. It's going to take me some time. And I kind of really am getting off on that, on the fact that this is something where every single time I go into the gym, I'm focused on mastering, and it's like a certain element of a much bigger picture. And I think, you know, the beauty of it is painting that picture over time, right? And it's going in with that mindset of, I just want to bring the best I can out of this lift, out of this session, out of this week, out of this module, out of this phase. Like, that's kind of where my headspace is at with it. And like I said, I'm digging it. I'm loving it. There's all the newness to it, right? So it's like,
it's so technical, right? Like, I think I've never powerlifted or never, you know, obviously.
You should do it, Steph. You should do it. You'd blow shit up. Like, actually, yeah, you know what? Just
I've met Stacy, okay? They're similar in height and similar. Like, I would not ever think I'm going to be able to lift over 200 pounds on, like, literally pressing. I can maybe do it on squats or deadlifts, like, you know, in like a little bit more of a higher lift. But, you know, I think that this is a struggle when it comes down from a physique standpoint, right? Like, when you don't want to put your body under a different type of programming for the time being. And I think that could be a good thing, a good listen for those that are listening, whether if you're a power lifter or a competitor, right? Physique competitor, you can do both, but you do have a different program protocol for each.
Yeah,
so each require different foods. So I think that is what kind of puts me off. Just not that I don't want to dabble into it. Maybe after done with, like, maybe stage, maybe I could
you definitely should, because you definitely have a natural capacity to be really good at it. Don't you agree, Stace? Like, I think she could own it.
100% agree. Whenever you get another crown or whatever your cap is, that you're done with it, you let me know, because you have, like, the willingness to learn, just like you, Alicia. Like, it's the willingness to learn. And, like, if you have passion with anything, you're going to excel at it. And, like, with you, there's so much to learn. And when that excites you, that's whenever you get better. Whenever you're constantly focused on, because powerlifting and strength sports, when you think about it, everybody wants the PRs and they want them tomorrow or they want them yesterday, right? My first squat in my first competition was 255 pounds. My last squat at my last competition was 565 pounds. Weight in between. So there was 10-pound PRs. But it takes time. It takes time. We always want the results immediately, but once you fall in love with the process and, like, just getting better every single day, or, like, mastering that skill, or not even mastering it yet, but just on the way, and that you start to, you know, really enjoy the process, that's when it works the best for you. So I can't wait to see what you do. And Steph, if you ever want to walk into this world, please, I would be more than happy to be your hype man any day.
Oh, if you're there, there's no way I would ever be able to do a competition without you. So, I mean, like, I can almost relate to your clients, how they feel when they're training with you, honestly. Yeah. Anybody that ever wants to, like, to cut. Okay, so Texas, I'm sorry, she just moved to Texas, so I'm super excited. Like, I'm even stuttering because I want to come down to Austin to come visit her just to do a session, okay? Like, the energy and vibe, guys, make sure you follow her because it's ridiculous. Like, the energy she puts out there. Sorry. I'm very much more looking forward to training with you and maybe start dabbling into that, like I said, after my competing stage. I think that would be fun for me. I do like strength performance goals. I think that's one of the best things to do in my building phase. Of course, like I said, maybe nutritionally, I'm not adequately maybe supporting the recovery side, or maybe, you know, trying for the strength portion, but I do like the challenge. So anybody out there that's trying to just do a gym, you know, just for competing or just for health, or if you're trying to do a strength-based, more powerlifting, as long as you're eating enough, guys, this is one of the biggest portions a lot of people miss in general, is their nutrition, making sure you eat properly, get good carbohydrates in, good protein. Protein is the priority here, but make sure you get your fibers, good fats, And I think that it's mainly also just your discipline and your everyday commitment to just bettering yourself. I think that process.
I think one of the biggest things that, add into that, Steph, because I think 100% it's all of those, focus on the things that support and fuel what it is you're trying to achieve, but also maybe just be kind to yourself and focus on the fact that this is a process. This is a journey. It is a layered, function. No success happens because you throw a couple of big things for a few days in your way, right? Like you literally have to break things down and have little small wins day by day consistently over time to create the really big outcomes. And I think, when people look at someone like Stace, they go, oh yeah, wow, like she's amazing. We're blown away by it, but I could never do that. And I was talking to Stace about this offline. I'm like, I hear it. I hear it about Steph. I hear it about me. I hear it about, Rach. I hear it about people that are literally, pushing boundaries at the top of their sport, right? And it blows my mind because I think to myself, yeah, but man, Stace was once just a kid kicking it in the playground too, man. Like actually. So what makes Stace get to the point that she did, other than some guy pissing her off with some bitchy fucking comment about being a girl, was a lot more than that, right? She just literally started from the beginning, found things she was passionate about, and then literally worked day in, day out to slowly master this craft, right? But Stace, I'd love for you to talk about, because I think we really oftentimes will work on highlight reels, but we forget the challenges. Give everyone a blueprint of the shit, the adversity, the hard stuff that you endured, and maybe even some of the losses along the way to greatness, because people think it's just all rainbows and sunshines, and it's really not. Like there's a lot of crap that comes before you take to that podium and take those titles, right? So give us a little bit of a reality check on the fact that, look, you're a human too, and it's not like the road doesn't go like that. It's more like boom, like really.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it starts out, we all start somewhere. And that's one thing that I love the idea of transformation. And how this all really came about was I decided one day that I was going to do this. I decided very intentionally that I wanted to be the strongest woman in the world. That was when I first did my first competition, I got the bug. And then I decided I was going to look up what all the all-time records were. Like, what is the best that's ever been done in my weight class? And I was like, okay, I can do that. Maybe not right now, but I was like, okay, well, here's where I am, and this is going to be my goal. And it might take years. It might take way longer than what I expect, but I can do this, because I recognize that with strength, with weight training, with anything like that, it's just a matter of how much work you're willing to do to put into it, right? And so it, all aspects, nutrition, recovery, your sleep, everything all had to add up. And so the glorious, the highlight reel that you see of, all the big numbers and whatnot, that came from me staying in at night. I'd go to bed at the same time every night, pretty much like I'd have set schedule, set routine. If I had friends and stuff that I lost along the way, because friends want to go do, go out or drink or party, but my goals were a little bit different than that, right? So it took me, I think, 5 years competing to really achieve my ultimate goal. And that's 5 years. And people say, oh, that's not a very long time. And it's not. But when you look at it as 5 years, 365, every single day, my day matched up with what my goal was. Every decision I made, on the food I was eating, on when I was going to bed, if I was hanging out with people or whatever it was, I made sure that was going to take me closer to my ultimate goal. And so it was an extreme level of focus. So I lost a lot of friends along the way, right? I lost the support of my family, because when you have a goal that's really big and it can be overwhelming to some people, they don't really understand the capacity or what it's going to take, right? Because, oh, you're just lifting weights, right? But it's way bigger than lifting weights. Yeah. It's about setting out and like having a plan and a goal and sticking to it. And then you actually stick to it, because I think nowadays a lot of people, they'll set a goal, and then when it gets hard, right? Whenever, oh, I don't want to eat this food anymore. Oh, I don't want to lose weight. Body hurts, yeah. Right? Because like you guys said, I'm not the biggest. I competed at 148 pounds. So when I was lifting weights, my body felt it, right? Like I felt everything that I did. And so my recovery had to be on point. But it's not a glamorous process, right? There were a lot of failures too. People think that, oh, you just kept on squatting more and more and more, but you don't see the days that I had bad training days, right? The days that I failed over and over. And I mean, just like absolutely kicked myself in the foot. And I was like, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do. Why is this not working for me? And then so you start to go down the road of self-doubt. You start to question yourself, well, is this even, am I crazy? And the answer sometimes is yes, but you just have to trust yourself and what you're actually, do you believe in what you're doing? I mean, it's true. It's like, if you believe in what you're doing and you're willing to sacrifice whatever that means to reach your goal, then it's there for you. And I think people forget that, because when things do get hard or challenging, we just want to abort mission and we want to do something that's easier. We want that instant gratification where we can just say, okay, well, Uber Eats, just deliver this food to my house right now. I don't even want to leave the house for it, right? So lifting 500 pounds whenever you don't feel the best or you're not motivated, that's a little bit challenging, isn't it? So I think, for me, just doing these things, the biggest thing that helped me through all of this was just my discipline, right? And so I set the goal a long time ago, and then I continued to work towards it. I failed over and over. I mean, I wanted my last meet for me to set the highest wilks record. I wanted it to be probably 2 meets before when I actually hit it, right? But I didn't get the deadlift that I needed to seal the biggest total. And so I had to go back to the drawing board and do it again, right? And so every single time that you fail, this is an important kind of note here. Every time that you fail, it's not final. It's part of the process, right? And if you're not there yet or not strong enough yet, you will be. And just like you, Steph, you say, oh, I could never lift over 200 pounds on a bench press. If you wanted to, you could. You could. It's there for you, right?
That I can't.
Maybe you're just not there yet.
No, you're 100% right. Everything you said. And you know what? I came in with that I can't mentality. So shame on me. Honestly, I even said, like, I can't do this. Like, there's no way. I've seen her in person. I've seen, but how many people think that of like you and I, Allie, right? Like when they say I have to go against them, like there's no way I'm going to go up against Alicia. I can't beat her. So I think that same notion, I easily just put myself in, and I'm going to make sure now, because I said that, it's going to be a goal post-comp. Okay. So post-comp, focus more on strength.
It's but it's the coolest thing when you can go, it's such a big stretch for me. So like for me, like I don't work in pounds, I work in kilos. But for me, like I want to eventually one day be able to bench 100 kilos. So what's that?
So that's what I was referring to in pounds, Allie. So I was saying like I wouldn't be able to do 100 kilos.
Is it? It's like it's over 200 pounds. It's 2.2 pounds, I think. So it's like 220, right? Is that right?
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. 100 kilos would be about 220-ish.
So I want to be able to do that, but it's huge. Okay. So I did 70. I did 70 last year for 1 rep, and that was not even actually at max testing yet, but I wanted to hit 77 like pretty soon. Like in my next block of training, I want to be able to get up to 77. But I don't think I'll make it for a little bit. Like I think I'm probably going to be, as long as my back holds up well, I'll probably be a couple. I don't know, maybe. What do you reckon, Stacey? Will it take me 2 years to get to that? Or maybe not.
It depends. Everything depends, right? It might not. It might. I remember it took me a year to put a pound on my bench press. Right, I went from a 319 pound bench press to a 320 pound bench press. Yeah, I mean, I never missed a training session. I never missed a training session ever. And so like it took that long for me to get a pound, but I think you have a lot of potential in there. And so it may not take that long at all.
You would have been at like best technique execution though, right? Whereas at the moment, my form and my technique is still a work in progress, like big time. Like I'm nowhere near executing a perfect lift yet, like nowhere near it. I mean, every time I feel like I'm getting better, which is great. But I mean, it's all in your structure and your setup, Steph. Like if you got a really good lockout in a bench, you'd be amazed what you can actually press. Like, and it feels way lighter than what you think it's going to.
Question, is it the same thing as like resistance training where you shouldn't go up in weight until you have that technique down, right? Like you should obviously have your correct technique down before you start trying to PR all your
it's like for me, I know that if I'm not locked in strong technique and it doesn't even feel like it's a strong setup, I just know immediately that I'm not going to execute anywhere near the numbers that I would have liked. And there's a whole bunch of things that go into it. Like Stacey will talk about this too. It's like, it's not just walking in and ticking boxes on a preset program. You walk in and it's like, okay, well, where's my readiness day? Like, where's my body like feeling fucking clapped out or not? Like, where's my emotional state? If I just had a fight with my partner and I want to slap my mom, or like, what's going on for me, right? Like, it's all those things. And then you've got to learn, like, this was my biggest thing too, was going, leave that shit at the door, because quite seriously, when you start messing with big lifts, you can't let anything else come into your head. Like, you'll break yourself if you do that shit. So you've literally got to be able to just go. And I've been usually really quite good at compartmentalizing, but I had to compartmentalize work, as in like, phone off, clients can't reach me at this time. Like, I'm out for an hour and a half. Sorry, team, done.
Oh, it's your time.
Like, it's just no, like just no contact, right? Because I'm literally in, and in between my sets, my lift rest period is, I can eat an entire lunch in between my lifts, mate. Like, this is the biggest rest I've ever had in my entire life. Like, at first, Stacy, you would have laughed at me. My first month in this, right, when I was trying it out at first, I had to stop myself because I would get up to go to do my next lift within like 60 seconds. And my coach was looking at me going, you're such a fucking bodybuilder, bro. Like, sit down. He just put his hand on my head and be like, sit down. And then I'd sit and I'm like, so what are we going to talk about? You start getting like really quite antsy because it's, wow, this is really unusual. Yeah. Then though, it got to the point where I would then dissect my lift in my rest and I'd talk it out. I'd be like, right, okay, I could feel where this wasn't there. I knew that my bar path wasn't right, man. Like, I wasn't bringing it back up, and I'd be just dissecting what it felt like. And that's a really great thing to do, because it keeps you locked mentally into what you're doing and you're not getting distracted by anything else. It's locked and loaded for the moment, right? So I fell in love with that. That is like, it's so cool. What I then found when it came time to start prepping for my show was that I was like, what the fuck do you mean I gotta go again? It's already been 60 seconds. Like, what? I'm not even able to breathe. Like,
do you guys actually have rest breaks, like between your lifts at the competition? Like, is that something?
And then I got like this, Stacy went like this. I went, what do you mean there's a number after 5? I don't know how to count past 5, man. Like, I got to that. It's so funny because everything's in such low ranges for a lot of what you're doing for most of the time. Like, you do, ranges of 8 to 10, and you do have, different stages. And
that's cardio. That's cardio.
I'm not even lying. That is fucking cardio. Like, legit. Wow.
I mean, if it's 500 pounds, I mean, of course it's fucking cardio. Come on. Like, that's...
So it's very different. But I love it. Like, I love it. Like,
but that's that same kind of intensity. No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, I think Steph had fallen in love with the process too, and the feel that you get. But far out, man. Like, seriously, I've fallen in love with it. Like, everything about it, even the lunch break, rest periods.
I love weight. So I think this is obviously exactly what I was kind of referring to, going through pain right since the beginning. I think everybody thinks it's easy to build muscle, and you've got to go through the pain. You've got to fail, exactly like Stacy said. If you don't fail, you're never going to learn, and you're not going to even continue moving forward. Failing is part of the success. You don't just see the medals, you don't just see the crowns on our end. We've fallen, we've failed, we've cheated, we've had to get back on track. That's part of it. We've lost friends. We've lost sleep. We've probably lost a lot of other things along the way, emotional distress. But, we are what we preach on a daily basis. We repeat our habits. We build a routine. We live it. We breathe it. And I think that's really what you guys need to take away home is just build that routine. Find your passion. Find something that puts a fire in your ass and makes you want to wake up every fucking day. Even if you don't want to wake up in the morning to actually do it, you have a routine. You've got a routine that's going to let you fail forward. Don't just fail and stay stuck. Fail forward and make sure that you find that passion that may drive you one day. The next day, routine drives you, but guess what? You continue doing it. I think that what she said and what rings. Yeah. No, did you want to say? Yeah.
Do you want to give Steph and I a quick rundown on what an average day looks like for you? When Steph's talking about these routines, like, I mean, her and I already are thinking about what it looks like for us, because we both have those, right? But for a lot of our listeners, they might not have yet those really well-established routines, or they might not even understand what a champion at your level in your sport looks like, what a routine or an effective routine would look like. I know you go to bed early and you don't drink alcohol. Two big things straight up. But maybe give everyone a bit of a blueprint on what time are you waking, how do you start your day, what's your how do you habit stack your morning, and then how do you maybe look at your night? Because I know sleep's a big thing for you. So, and obviously why when you're pushing like 5 billion tons. Wow.
Well, that was one of the things that was hardest for me when I first transitioned to powerlifting was taking more days off, because I was always a 7-day-a-week train person. I just love training, right? That's how I fell in love with the gym in the first part, was I love training. So we pull back to 5 days a week. And so on those 2 days, I'm like, I don't know what to do with my hands, but I just, my last competition, what I did to really reach like that ultimate level, I ended up moving in with my coach. So I moved down to Florida and I moved in with my coach because where I was training at, I was basically training by myself. And I don't know if you guys know this, but whenever you're training alone and like you're just looking for feedback or something, most of the time when you're in the big fish in a small pond, everybody wants to praise you. And I knew that to really reach that next level, I needed somebody to give me that harsh criticism that I needed to hear. I needed somebody to tell me that looks like crap, do it again. And so the only way I was going to do that was really to be under the guidance of my coach. So I lived with him for the entire prep. And what I did, so I moved into their spare bedroom. I ended up moved in with him, his wife, and his kids. So that was an adjustment for me. But I woke up at 8 o'clock every single morning. So not like a 4 a.m. kind of person, because my sleep was a high priority, right? Sure. So I woke up at 8 a.m. every morning and I would go for a walk. This was the normal daily routine. I go for a walk and normally listen to a podcast. So I wouldn't be on my phone, like because normally, sometimes we'll get out of bed and we'll start immediately on Instagram or emails. And then you just have so much going on. Nope, that was not it. I had planned throughout my day the time for me to work. But in the morning time, I woke up and I just started with my daily affirmations. I wake up in the morning, I do go for a walk, and I say, I am strong. This is what I'm going to do today. I am statements, right? So I think, Alicia, you said something earlier and you were like, I want this. I want this. I want you to reframe that next time. This is totally me just interjecting, but I want you to reframe that and say, I am going to have that bench press, that 100-kilo bench press. I am.
Yeah.
So like, there's something that
happens.
It's happening. I am going to do 100-kilo bench press. We used to joke when my back was busted. When my back was busted, and we were like, I didn't even think I could ever even eventually get to a powerlifting competition, but I was like, one day I'm going to. It's going to happen. We used to joke, me and one of my mates he's got titles here in Australia. We used to joke that I'd just be a bencher because at least I could do that, right? And then it became the joke of, but I don't know if I'd like to play with just one part of the sandpit, right? I'm like not that kid. I want to run around the whole freaking thing. So yes, I'm going to do that. But then I'm absolutely going to improve my freaking squat, because that's the one that has a little bit of a mental anchor for me, because it was my injury cause. So
well, that's where we're going to start with those affirmations. I am going to fix my squat. I am going to have this, because that was one thing that was really important in my daily routine, right? Awesome. Was saying my affirmations and what I was going to do. Because if we don't set our intentions, even for every single day, the day can just get away from you. Somehow it's 8 p.m. and you're like, how did I get here? I didn't do anything, right? So say what you're going to do. So in the morning, podcast, go for a walk, and then I would do my morning mobility. So that was my first session, was like a 15, 20 minute, I would go in Trevor's garage. That's where Trevor was my coach. Go in the garage, do a warm up kind of mobility and just move, right? So get my body primed for what I was going to do to it later in the day.
What does mobility look like?
I'd eat my breakfast after that, after my morning movement.
Stace, what does mobility look like for you? Just to give people an idea.
Okay, so probably about 15 to 20 minutes of single leg RDLs, Cossack squats, just some cat camels, so like thoracic rotations, just movement, right? So I'd go on a foam roller, or like maybe roll a lacrosse ball in my feet, any kind of trigger points, but just mainly moving through active ranges of motion, just to really, if there's any restriction, feel it, kind of loosen it up. Because when you start becoming more body aware, that's whenever you're like, okay, this is tight. Like you can actually recognize it, address it, and then slowly but surely you're unwinding that. So that would be usually a mobility session. It's just 15 to 20 minutes of movement. And then after that, I'd come back in and I'd have my breakfast in the morning. So my first meal of the morning would either be oatmeal or a bagel, something that would be carb heavy, because what I was going to do was at 11 o'clock, we would always go train. So that would be, we'd meet back in the garage, and that would be where my session was. Same time every day. Doesn't matter if it was, a bad day, it was raining outside, it was sunny. 11 o'clock, I'm going to be in that spot training, right? And not warming up then, I'm training then. So just setting that intention and having that. After training, I'd drink a shake and I'd have my post-training meal, which looked like pretty typical, is usually a rice meal with chicken, or a rice meal with, some type of lean meat for the most part. either some sweet potatoes, something of the sort. It's super basic, super boring, nothing glamorous, right? And then after that, I would usually have my time where I set aside, like blocked off my time to work. So I'd be working from home and everything, but I'd set aside my time. This is the time where I can actually exhaust my mental power. And so I'd get all that done in my allotted period of time. Then pretty much I'd have my next meal. All my meals were scheduled. So I usually would eat 4 to 5 times a day with probably 2 snacks in between, averaging about, at that when I was training, probably about 24 to 2,600 calories. And it worked very well for me. I found I was very recovered. I would normally wind down about like 7:30-ish, which is so late, right? The only events I really went to, I'd go to the grocery store and pick up my meals, or I would go to the gym and train if we went out for a big training session. But other than that, I stayed at home. I never even had a key to my coach's house because I didn't need it. I never really did anything outside of eating, sleeping, and training for those prep months, right? I didn't see other people. But so 7:30, I would.
How long was a prep month for that? For how long is a prep cycle for you when you're coming into something so big as what that meet was?
How long was that?
So I honestly say that I'm never in an off season because I'm always preparing, but typically it's like 10 to 12 weeks. So I was with Trevor for about 10 weeks at his house. So then that time, this was my routine, my schedule. And so 7:30 we'd wind down and I would do my second mobility session of the day. So just kind of like a cool down after I've already done my work. So I'd do 2 sessions of those a day, and it's just short, but I would make sure I'd make sure I get it done before I'd go to bed. That was something I had to check off the list. So I'd move, I'd kind of wind down, and I'd usually have a shake before I went to bed, like a slow digesting protein, and then I would get in bed and I would go to sleep. And there would be some days, like on harder training days, that people don't understand this, but man, I would plan a nap, right? Like after training, I would eat and plan a nap. But that was really what my life looked like for those 12 weeks, was eating, sleeping, training, and adhering to those routines every single day, because I started off my day the same way. I ended my day the same way. And there was very little variance in that. And pretty much like what you talked about earlier too, is like limiting your distractions. I did that in my normal life, but then also when I was training, my phone was hooked up to the music, but then it was face down somewhere else because I'm focused on my training and that's my number one top priority. So just being so undistracted, I'd say that was one of the highlights and keys to my success, was making sure I was in the position I needed to be to succeed.
And this is why I wanted to have you run through that, because I think that people think that success like yours comes easy, or it's just gifted to you genetically, right? And I think there's a really powerful take home for people, even in our sport, that really want a title, but they don't understand that you've just talked about something that reflects very similar to what Stephanie and I do. And sometimes it's from 16 weeks out, right? And it's literally like that. You can't be toying with the concept of socializing with friends in certain environments, because it's just, well, look, you could if you want to, but it's just how much do you want it or not, right? So I'm totally in agreement that the continuity and consistency of your rituals is absolutely the most imperative thing, but it's also just completely dedicating with laser focus, nothing but what your end objective is, time to that, it's just all your time to that. So I love that that's what it looks like for you. I love that people are hearing just how, oh my God, entrenched in it you were, because don't think anyone would have expected you to say, I literally locked myself inside my coach's house for 10 weeks, people. But that's essentially it. And I love that you did that. I also really love, and I hope everyone that's listening, I know, right? It's awesome. I hope everyone that's listening to this understands that mobility, and I know, I've talked about it on my respective pages and platforms so many times, is so imperative. And if you're going to go do crazy physical feats like Stace, then it's even more so, right? So the people that say to me, oh man, just triggering for 5 minutes before a session is too much, or I don't even really want to prime, what are you even doing? Because if there's a woman doing 20 minutes of this stuff, right?
2 times a day.
Religiously, 2 times a day.
Yeah.
Does that say something to you?
Exactly. And that's actually one of the things I was going to ask, Stacey. Like, so clearly it's one of the biggest priorities, right? Like mobility, your range of motion, making sure your joints are feeling good, mobile, and your muscles are obviously lengthened and stretched out, not feeling knotted up. on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put actually training, right, lifting versus that mobility? Because I think a lot of people put that on the back burner, and like you said, just don't want to do it.
I say honestly, it's just as important. I hate to say that it's like the same level of importance, but it is. Because the biggest thing is probably I would go backtrack and say, if I could look back and do anything different, I would pay more attention to my movement patterns, and making sure I was doing what I needed to do as far as, prehab and rehab. Because whenever you start to be in pain, power lifters think that you have to be in pain, right? Oh, to lift these kind of weights, your body has to hurt. And that was kind of like the badge of honor I took. It's like, oh yeah, I can train and I don't feel good. But think about what that does to you mentally. If you're training and you're in pain, you're not going to have as good of an output. So if you're able to manage that pain and kind of, mitigate some of that stress, you're going to perform better. So although you think, oh, well, this is just a waste of time, I don't really want to do this, it's going to improve your in-game result, especially if you do it continuously. And I've had clients say, oh, I've been doing my mobility work for 2 weeks and I haven't seen any difference. Well, let me just be honest here. It didn't happen in 2 weeks, right? Like, you did not create this dysfunction in your body in 2 weeks. So how do you expect to have undone it in 2 weeks and halfway doing it, right? It's going to take time and effort and energy, but all the little things like this, they all add up. And so if I was going to give it a ranking, I would say it's a 10. I'd say your nutrition's a 10, and I'd say your training's a 10. But your training is the fun part, right? Yeah. That struggle is what produces the strength. That struggle is the fun part. So honestly, it doesn't even seem like a 10 because it's fun. And if your training's not fun, even if you're lifting big weights and whatever else, if your training's not fun, you might need to change what you're doing if you're not enjoying it, because your training is always something that should be enjoyable to you. Even if it's painful, it's part of the process, and that's something you have to embrace. If you're, anticipating the resistance, or if you're complaining about, oh, this feels so heavy, reframe that idea and just say, instead of it being heavy, you're strong. You're strong enough to do that, and you're strong enough to withhold and to actually go through the struggle. And so when you think about that, it's empowering instead of what you were looking at it previously. It's like, oh, this is such a chore. It's so hard. No, this is what you get to do. This is the fun part. And so that's what I really love. I mean, just take that one to the house.
Amen. Everything you said, you guys need to make sure you take notes, and, obviously really, really take to heart everything she just said, because that was on point. Seriously, mobility, guys, do not neglect it. I did, and I suffered for it. What she said was exactly what I went through. You think that you're supposed to be in pain. You think that it's just part of it. Same with me when I was going through, obviously, we do bodybuilding. It is a physical, just isolated movements, a lot of squatting, a lot of deadlifting, and a lot of pressing as well, but not to the extent of strength. But you just think oh, I'm supposed to be in pain. Well, there's a difference between pain, muscularity pain, versus joint pain. And I think that joint pain is where you really need to start paying attention to and adhere to your body and listen to your body. Like she said, if you wake up super tight, address that, do some mobility work, add in 15-20 minutes daily. She does it twice, but she's obviously more of a demand for her, but make sure you do it on a daily basis. People like Alicia, she's injured. She has to do it. So if she doesn't do it, she gets turned up like a pretzel. So
it's pretty accurate. That's exactly what it's like. And I find I'm a little bit like you, Stace. I do mine first thing in the morning. I've got a legit sort of structure and a routine, and it evolves and progresses. But at the moment, actually, I'm doing the knees over toes guys program. Have you seen his work?
I love him.
Yeah, he's awesome, right? Yeah. So I'm working with him at the moment, and I'm doing this progressive 12-week structure. And it's actually, for me, the focus is actually on the back. So it's what I have an issue with mine is sometimes my hip on my left side won't move properly because of the disc structure, because I've got a multi-tier bilateral bulging disc structure from L5 to C, my SIJ1. So it's all the way out both sides. Okay. And so sometimes when one sits out low and it presses on my nerves, it stops my whole hip from opening, my hamstring gets locked tight, and I don't get any full length of range at all in my back of my left side. It's real problematic. So I'm doing a lot of work with him at the moment to open that up, keep that free, increase my range of motion all down that left side, but also in my back in general. And what my standard I'm trying to get to, I'm trying to progress to, is a Jefferson curl with 25% of my body weight, where I'm on a step and my wrist will come down below my toes. So not just to the floor, but where the weight sits below my toes. That's what I'm trying to get to. And to paint a picture for everyone, when I first started 3 weeks ago, to bend with my, because you have to keep your quads locked on and your hamstrings completely straight. So completely straight legged. I could only get my fingers just below my knees. So I'm trying to get so to put it in perspective, I'm trying to get this, my toes here, that below my toes, and I can only get my hands to my knee.
You're trying or you're going to do it? You're trying or
no,
you're gonna
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do
That's
it.
what I thought you said.
I'm going to do it. Even if it breaks me. No. So that's my goal. That's my goal in the next 12 weeks. But I've already seen a massive improvement. So when I started, it was to my knees. Now I'm halfway down my shins in 3 weeks. So of course I'm going to freaking nail it, woman.
But that's 3 weeks. 3 weeks. So everybody, whenever you don't see that improvement, just like Stacy said, her clients kind of complaining after 2 weeks and not seeing anything happen. It's not going to happen in 2 weeks. Or maybe you might see some slight improvements in flexibility, the range of the muscle, like some flexibility like Alicia saw in 3 weeks. But yeah, just continue doing it. I think that even for me, like I thought a cool goal, this was, I don't know how many of you girls think this is cool, but doing like the splits was a pretty cool goal for me. And so back in the day, I was like trying to, just lengthen my legs and trying to get my hips to be open enough. Never could do the Chinese, but I can at least get the range for the American split. But that's still, it didn't happen just for a year, even of practicing. It took me, I want to say 3 years to be able to get that length and flexibility in my hamstrings and of course my adductors. So yeah, guys, continue stretching, continue doing as much mobility, and just know it's just as important as your strength training. I mean, it's really one of the big key components people like put aside. But Allie,
rig repair.
A lot. Yeah.
Rig repair is what I call it. Rig repair. Hey, Stace, on that note, have you had any major injuries in this sport to date?
Yes, I actually I fractured my back, my L5S1, and so I had a ton of issues coming back from that. I had one, like they did like a treatment on me, and the treatment didn't help anything at all. This is when I really started looking into like different forms of how can I get better, because what I talked to the doctors about, they said, just stop lifting. Right? They said, you're never going to be able to squat again. You're never going to be able to deadlift again. That's just like a pipe dream. So you might as well just hang that up. And so I didn't take no for an answer. And I was like, even me, I've always been a little bit on the stubborn side, but I thought that was their limitation and not mine. So what I decided I was going to do was I was going to throw myself into getting better. And my goal was, to squat 500 pounds or to squat all this. I changed that goal and took it back to where I was right then, because sometimes I think people, they look at the big goals, and then when something happens, the kind of an obstacle comes in, you get so overwhelmed, and you're like, okay, well, screw it. It's not worth it. Well, maybe you just need to change the focus. So my focus wasn't on squatting anymore. It was on getting so I could walk again, getting so I could like sit without pain, so I could move without pain. And so that's when I started really looking into what is this mobility stuff? How can I move better? How can I get myself out of pain? And so that was really started leaning into it and leaning to like recovery methods. And like I started taking ice baths and stuff like that. It was a process, but I kept myself motivated because I knew that this was something I wanted. And what I like to look at things as a problem solution. So what you said earlier, Steph, you were like, recognize if you feel tightness or if you feel something, you can address it. And so with anything, if there's a problem, it's up to you to create a solution. So my back injury was probably my worst injury. I had a lot of bicep tendonitis and shoulder issues from benching, but I really worked on my T-spine mobility and like getting my thoracic extension a little bit better. And so that was helpful for getting my shoulder in a better position. But my back was the thing that I had to overcome. And that just took time, effort, consistency, these same principles that we're talking about. But I just had to do that mobility work every single day. And I realized it was super important. So even then, I think I was doing it probably 3 times a day then, because I wasn't fully able to train. So I just put myself into what I could do and focus on the little goal of trying to get myself out of pain. And so that was super helpful for me and really helped reinforce just the fact that you can overcome pretty much anything, right? And it doesn't matter what other people's limitations or what other people say. If you want to do something, all you have to do is find a way. It's a problem and you can create the solution. Sometimes you just have to be creative with it.
Find a way. I love it. I love it. Just the way she said it, guys. I mean, there is always, when there is a will, there really is a way. There really is. So that wasn't her limitation.
Well, you guys even said something. Yeah, I think you said, I was small, right? I'm relatively small. And you think I couldn't do the things that she did. well, my body wasn't made to do these things, right? Like my body was not made to do the absolute. Sometimes I looked at it and I was like, one of my biggest motivating factors was my late grandpa. He told me that I was the strongest woman in the world. And that was just like a him and I kind of thing. But he never had any idea that I would make that with it, right? He had no idea that I was going to lift 565 pounds. He had no idea. But just that little seed to me, it made me realize that it was possible, right? And so I think some people, it's important to realize that these things are possible. You just have to really believe in yourself and like just actually own that, because my coach will tell you, he's been on several podcasts himself, and I'm not the most talented. I'm really not. I would get up in a lineup of all the top powerlifting girls and you'd look at me and say, oh, did she even work out? I mean, like honestly, you say, oh, did she even lift? But like,
we've seen you. There's no question.
There's no question.
There's no question. We've seen you. You got like, woo.
I do Zumba sometimes on the weekends, all right? I do Zumba. But
I would ask you to flex. I'd ask you to flex, Stace, but there's not enough room in the screenshot. You push me and Steph out of the frame.
But so the reason why I succeeded wasn't natural gifted talent, right? Like I just worked very hard, and that's the thing. Trevor said that's the reason why I was so successful, is because I believed in myself enough and my end game goal, and I was willing to work for it. There are girls out there that are so much more talented than me, so much more skilled than me. I mean, absolute, technique assassins, right? And I just had a ton of willpower and just dedication and belief. And so that's one of those things to say, oh, well, I'm just not talented, or I'm not naturally gifted. Oh, it probably just came easy for her. This was probably the hardest thing that I've ever done, just the collective having to, just go through all this. And it's possible for anybody out there, no matter what the task or the feat is, whatever your goal is, if you want it, like we said, if you want it bad enough, you'll find a way to improvise one. And so it's out there for everybody.
Heck, one of the biggest takeaway homes that you just said was believing in yourself. And even if you don't believe in yourself to the extent of thinking you're going to be the champion in your next show or the next meet or within the next year, just believing in yourself that that's what you want and that's really truly what you're going to set yourself out to do, then do it. Don't literally doubt that you cannot do it. Exactly. You have, and this was something that I will say I'm guilty of doing, is saying I wasn't going to be a world champion. And I always had Carrie in my ear saying, you're going to be a world champion. And I didn't believe it. And it wasn't until I truly believed it myself, when I truly started taking that in, I'm like, man, I actually think I can do this. But again, it didn't happen in a year, didn't happen in 2. So you just have to continue believing in yourself, set up your routine, know that you have good habits, something that fires passion in you, and you go out and literally fight for that every single day and believe that it's for you. I really think that thanks, Stacy, for saying that, because that's actually 100% what I believe any champion's mindset has. You believe in yourself.
It's about that confidence. Like that's where it comes from. People say, oh, well, Stacy, I don't have nearly the confidence you do. Well, check this out. Confidence is a skill just like anything else, and you can train it, right? So how do you reinforce confidence? By discipline, through your habits. Every single day, this is what I do. Every single day, I make my bed every single morning. Why? Because that's what I do. On the days you don't feel good and you still go into the gym and you do this, is because that's what I do, because that's what champions do. They believe in themselves. And so how do you create confidence? Through consistency, through in your habits. When you start to self-doubt, whenever you start to question yourself, like, can I really do this? Am I actually like making the right choices? And then you look at, what you're doing and you're like, yeah, it looks like I am. It looks like I am. So I'm working towards that, whether I'm as close as I want to be yet. I'm steadily getting 1% better every single day, and slowly but surely you're gonna get there. That's the thing with me, is I always knew I was going to do these things. I didn't know when, but it's like, if you believe in yourself enough that this is for you and this is worth, like you said, fighting for, if you believe in it, then just keep going after it until you get what you want. And if you don't get what you want, just keep going.
Keep going. Get knocked down, come back up, fight again, keep fighting. I love it. I think that's
I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about that workout video that Mitch shot with you. That's what I'm thinking about.
Again, that's how we met. The sparks flew. I just fell in love with this woman, and she's been an inspiration to me since I met her. So thank you, Stace, for always providing motivation and also just really, really deep, humble like really insight to how it really is to be a champion and to grind on it every single daily basis. And you're so relatable, really are. I know you're just background. If you guys listen to her story, you just tune into her, like her podcast, and she kind of goes through her, upbringing and everything. But I mean, it's very inspiring. I think your story alone, Stace, I mean, there's tears that come into my eyes anytime I like read it or hear it. So that's definitely worth a listen for you guys. Stacy, give them your handle so everybody obviously kind of follows your IG as well.
I am at Bema Burr. That's Bema Burr. And so that's me. And then my podcast is The Champion Mindset. And you guys can check that out. Follow me, listen on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. But I appreciate you guys, and thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed this conversation because being able to talk to two champions along with me, it's a great vibe because energy attracts energy, right? So you can always, I've only met you like over in the Bahamas, and then we've hung out a couple times, right? But it's like one of those things where you can just recognize that good energy. And so I'm just so appreciative, and thank you guys for having me on. And I cannot wait to see you bench 100 kilos. And yes. I can't wait to get you in powerlifting anyway. Whatever goals you set, we're gonna smash them. So
gotta do a training session with
Stace, we're so appreciative of having you on. It's been a great episode. And to end this one, we're going to round out with something a little bit different because we usually start with this and I missed it today. So we're going to end with it. Steph and I start with what was our highlight of the week. It could be something crazy. It could be something challenging. It could be whatever, but your highlight of the week or something big that's happened. What are you grateful for this last week? And what are you working on improving, or what's your focus for the following week?
I'd say my highlight of this week, I just moved to Texas. And so one of the things that I did, I set out this week, I said I wanted to find a new bike trail to go on. So I found a new trail to go biking on, which was a great experience. I love biking. That's one of my favorite things to do since I'm not competing anymore. Get my cardio in outside of my 8 reps. But, and I also started working at a gym. It's called Liberation Barbell Club in Austin, Texas. Yeah. And I just started doing one-on-ones again because I loved it, right? And so I've been removed from like the one-on-one personal training scene for a while, but I'm so very grateful for the people that I get the chance to work with, the people that I get to, give my energy to every day. And I forgot kind of, with the, COVID and everything else, I forgot just how rewarding it was to watch somebody get up under a bar and do a weight that they've never done before. And just that absolute elation from that, I get so much absolute joy from that. So I'm incredibly grateful for just being able to personal train, being in a new environment, and just feeling so welcome and right at home. So that's my highlight. And then that's the thing I'm grateful for. And what I'm working on now, I'm just working on being better every single day, and just whatever capacity that is, right? I'm not really interested in lifting more weight. I'm really interested in being able to make an impact and to share my story with people. And so I can let others know that they can do this exact same thing, but even better than me, right? So doing this podcast, honestly, this has been fantastic because that's really helped me, increase that impact. Because if you listen to this, I just want you to know that I want you to do even more than me and be even better, because maybe you started sooner or maybe you started right now, but wherever you are is a great place to start. So thank you guys for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much, Stace. Woohoo!
Thank you, team. Great podcast.
Hey, thank you. Hey, Stace, awesome having you, babe. Thank you so much. And Allie, it's so good to see you.
Oh, no, yeah. If you guys ever need any kind of filler content, just let me know. I can talk for hours.
Well, I'm sure we'll probably get a request to have you back.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we will get people like the audience be like, hey, I want her back on here. So, and you know what though? Next time maybe we'll be in the same office, because I may come down, or you may come up. Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Just let me know, and I can bring my stuff up to you or whatever, and we can do a session in person or whatever else. You just let me know. You hit me up.
Yeah, we're gonna have a session. That's for sure. That's for sure. We're gonna trade. We're gonna do that. We're gonna make it happen. All right, guys. Y'all have a good. Well, you have a good night, Stace. You have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Good to see you, Stace.
Right. See you guys later. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Queen Divas, Queens of Fitness podcast. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Queen Divas Pod, on Twitter at Queen Divas 4, and follow our hosts on Instagram, Alicia at Alicia Gowans _WBFF Pro, and Steph at Stephanie Ayala 7. See you all next week.